Casting from the basement of La Penta, it's WICR.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Sports Fall Jersey. Joe Archino back here, and everything in the English Premier League is becoming much clearer. I think the biggest of all of those is that we can finally say without a doubt that Manchester City Football Club is not a title contender. Now, I've been pretty adamant about this, and I've done many segments really describing why I don't think you can make that claim about Manchester City, and it's really only been advanced even further after losing to Tottenham 2-1. Now, I picked this one right. I did have Tottenham beating them 2-1, and it's just because of this fact. The competitive advantage against every club that matters has never been in Manchester City's favor. Now, you kind of look at them now, and they've lost to Tottenham Hotspur both times they played. They're 0-1-1 against Leicester this season, and they lost to Arsenal. The overall resume of Manchester City is not impressive against everyone that matters, against the Evertons, the West Ham Uniteds, the Manchester Uniteds. They have not had the quality wins over these. They do what they do against Crystal Palace and against Newcastle. But those wins are the ones that you're supposed to. Against the clubs that matter, showing that you are a Premier League title contender, they have not. They have not had the competitive advantage in any of the matches that have mattered this season, and that has happened once again. Now, Vincent Kompany did make his return, and that has clearly been one of the reasons that they have struggled so mightily, having that competitive advantage against the clubs that matter. But this is a club that has spent exorbitant amounts of money to make this roster capable of winning a title, and it just is not. I mean, you can look and watch these matches very easily and determine for yourself why they can't win the title. It's just very easy, and the biggest factor for that is there's no sense of togetherness. There's no communication. The club is just—it looks like a bunch of solo players out there and not playing as a team. That's the biggest struggle for Manchester City. Money and egos are something that's difficult to control, and they certainly have a lot of those things on Manchester City. I don't think any of us doubt the talent that these players have, but these players don't use the talent to play together. They all play as solo, singular players, and that doesn't win you titles. That is why Leicester City is in first place, because they play together. They play as a team. They use their solo talent together in a collective effort, and the collective effort certainly has not been on the side of Manchester City, but it's just one of those things where you keep on looking at these matches and you keep on looking at Manchester City and you struggle to answer the questions of why they struggle so mightily against these top-tier clubs, because for all intents and purposes on paper they should. Look at all the talent there. I mean, David Silva, you look at Raheem Sterling, you look at Kevin De Bruyne, Sergio Aguero. All of these talented players, I mean, they have players that other clubs would die to have, and they can't put it together. Manchester City finding themselves in fourth place after this weekend. Leicester City in first with 53. Tottenham Hotspur in second with 51. Arsenal in third with 51. And Man City finds themselves in a lowly fourth place with 47 points. And it's one of those things now where I think one of the problems for City right now is they're so looking ahead with Pep Guardiola's arrival looming in the distance. He won't be taking over until July, but that's such a name and such a presence that everyone's been so looking forward to his arrival. But the task at hand is now. Manchester City had every reason, and they should have won never forget the way they started this season. 5 wins from 5, no goals conceded. They were literally perfect. And it really has been such a downward spiral from that point. I mean, David Silva was probably the best player in the league those first 5 or 6 weeks, and then he went down with an injury. Vincent Kompany went down with an injury, and before long, Sergio Aguero went down with an injury. The injuries and just the culmination of a couple of other things really has inhibited this team from playing their best. And again, I think it's very easy to see who these clubs are at this point. We've played a lot of matches. We really know and have a good feel for everybody right now. Tottenham Hotspur is for real. Arsenal, of course, is for real. Now, Tottenham's really caught up. They didn't have the greatest start, but right now they certainly continue to play better and better. Arsenal has had periods of inconsistency and injuries that they've had to deal with, but again, they really seem to find their place after time. I think they will still have some hiccups, but nowhere near the ones like Manchester City has had. And then, of course, Leicester City has been the most consistent club all season, but Manchester City has had the wrong kind of consistency all year and has been the inability to hold a competitive advantage and to get quality wins. I mean, just look at the schedule. They're not there. You can comb up and down through every match that they played this season, whether it's in the Champions League or whether it's in the Premier League during the regular season. They just don't have those wins against Liverpool, against Arsenal. They're not there. In the Champions League, one of the things that I think really sums up and defines this current Manchester City squad is when I'll go back to what I was just saying a few moments ago about how they had the perfect start to the season, and a lot of people thought, well, now it's finally time for Manchester City to take it to the next level in the Champions League. This is a club that has never really had a substantial victory or substantial success in this competition. This might be the year where they can get that to go. And they were facing off against a Juventus side who had their worst start in Serie A history in almost 87 years. So both ways those teams were coming in were totally opposite. But when they took the pitch, Juventus emerged as the victorious side, and I think that right there kind of says it all about Manchester City Football Club. Against the clubs that matter, they don't win. And if you don't win against the clubs that matter, you are not a good club. I mean, Manchester City has all the talent, but if you're asking me, can they win the Premier League title? Absolutely not. There is no chance. I mean, again, I look at everything that I've seen this year, and I've seen Manchester City play almost every match. I can't tell you how emphatically I'm saying they can't win the title. Pep Guardiola, when he takes over, everything is going to be different. I do think that they will have the advantage, and they will have to do things his way. Because when you bring in a guy like that, it's his way or it's the highway. He's going to get rid of some people. He's going to institute what he wants to. But this season, it's lost. And really, when it all comes down to is it will be a lost season for Manchester City because there was only one goal, and it was to win the title. When you bring in Raheem Sterling for exorbitant amounts of money and Kevin De Bruyne and all this talent, you have one expectation and one clear goal, and that is to win the title. They will not do that this season. It has really been a complete failure in all regards because if you were competitive to a point against these top clubs like you should be, and it's a fight to the end, it's a little bit easier to take. It's still not what your goal is. You still failed on your goal, but it's a little bit easier to take. But when you have this talent and when you are a club that spends this exorbitant amount of money and you haven't had any quality wins against any of the quality opponents, your season's almost a disaster. I mean, it's hard to really say disaster when you're in fourth place, but again, you are measured by who you play. Not all wins are created equal. And for that reason, I just think Manchester City, the word disaster is appropriate because when you have not had wins against Leicester and against Arsenal and against Liverpool and against all these clubs that are playing for what matters, you really have failed. And I think this season is going to be looked back on as a failure for Manchester City. The only thing that kind of I think is going to help smooth things over is they really have such a bright future ahead of them with Pep Guardiola coming in. But, this is a club that should have been in position to win right now, but they find themselves in fourth place after this weekend. And once again, it just reconfirmed everything that I feel about Manchester City Football Club. This is not a club that holds the competitive advantage, and this is not a club that can win the Premier League title. It just is not. Look at the schedule, go up and down it. You find reasons why they can. I certainly cannot. Until the next time we see Manchester City play, though, Jersey Joe Archino back here with the Sports Vault. You can follow me on Twitter at Joe Archino, on Instagram, Jersey_Joe_Archino, and we'll see everybody next time.